Read me. Read me. Read me. Read me. Read me. Read me. Good morning. Hey, Greg. I was trying to eat breakfast. He came down and demanded to be fed. From this morning, if it's the one from this morning, Greg, I've been running my kids to the bus stop. My grandkids, their babysitter's having some surgery, so she can't do it. And then I pick them up again in the afternoon. Well, yesterday I got there about 10, 15 minutes early, and it's a bus stop, but everybody else has it timed out, so they had to show up 5 minutes before the bus. While I was all there, only car sitting there. And some guy came out of his house and started yelling about getting off his property, and he ended up calling the cops. And I tried to go live to get the beginning of the conversation. It wouldn't work. Streamlabs wouldn't let me. So I static recorded him yelling at me when he was calling the cops. And he got my plate number and called the cops. And my grandkids were all upset. So I moved to cross the street. And I was fiddling trying to get Streamlabs to work, figure out why it wouldn't alert. And I was watching the video that I just recorded, and the cop's face pops up in my, it's dark out, the cop's face pops up in my window, and he's watching the video that I'm playing of this guy yelling at me. And I said hi, he said hi, and he walked over to talk to the guy and got on the other side of the car to explain to the guy that, you can park in the street for one thing, and there's an easement. And so then I taped that, but you couldn't hear or see anything. It's dark. So I did a really lousy job of getting the video to work. And I tried this morning to use Streamlabs. I deleted it and re-uploaded it, and it was letting me go live. So I was trying it from the bus stop again this morning. I don't know how cold it was this morning here, but I'll bet it was damn close to freezing. I felt like about 34. It's 34 out right now. We'd had like, it was 39 or 37 and snow and rain yesterday when I was at the bus stop around 4 o'clock. Yes, that's my problem. I keep testing out Streamlabs to see if, because I don't have the 1,000 subs, and I haven't been trying to get them because Streamlabs let me go to the park a couple times. It would go live here. It was working fine, and now it doesn't. The sound just for some reason doesn't work anymore. And I think it was because the iPhone updated. I always have trouble after updates. They always take shit away that you used to have. So I'm just gonna have to try for 1,000 subs, I guess. Good morning, Drew. Yeah, I tried to eat breakfast. He wouldn't let me. He's like all over the cage, screaming and hollering. He's hungry, he's starving. He's been eating since before I started going live. Oh, guess I'll eat breakfast for lunch today. And this morning, the grandkids wouldn't let me park in that spot again. They think that's mean of me, so we had to park across the street again. But here is the ultimate kicker to this whole thing is that his property is on the main road and on the corner. The other end of his property is on the corner of the two roads in the park, and the bus stop is out in front of his back of his house because it faces towards the trailer park, not towards the road. And that's where the kids all gather and play in his yard every day before the bus. But I was parked on the street. Literally, none of my tires were in the dirt. And this guy just flips out for me parking. But see, I completely understand their point of view in that my brother had a corner on his house, and like the quad runners, the bicycles, the snowmobiles, they all cut across his yard and destroy his yard that he was very proud of and took great care of. And so he put big stones out along the edge of the property, and a car hit one and tried to sue him, and a snowmobile hit one and totaled the snowmobile. But it's like, yeah, the people don't have respect. And I had respect. I was in the road. I was got a little cocky when he walked away, though. On the recording, I'm yelling, "Not even the federal government could kick me out of here." What a moron I was. But it was a balance because the grandkids were so upset, and I didn't want them to get worse upset. So I was trying to do a cop watch, be part of the cop watch, and not let the grandkids get too upset over it because when they go tell the story to my kids, that's why I lost the right to babysit my grandkids. Was because I took my grandson to the store and we were riding in a electric cart and they tried to tell me he had to walk beside it and couldn't ride on my lap. And because of that, within a week I was no longer their babysitter. So I kind of overly paranoid about this one, and I didn't cause this one. And yeah, by the way, the company policy changed after they yelled at me about that. Yeah, I didn't let it go. We went a few emails. We went to assisted living that had been a witness to it. The vice president of our local assisted livings department was a witness to it, and she was like, "I can't believe they tried to do that to you." Joe Cool, my goodness, I should have been watching the chat. Yeah, brother, just the reptile's screaming for breakfast, and I was trying to eat. He's like, "No, feed me, feed me." And we were talking about my cop watch I got to be part of yesterday. But I was very controlled because of all the multiple things that were going on. I was filming. I was the person that the call was about, and I had my grandkids there trying not to get them too upset. So they got a very mild version of me. Well, Joe, I had to take my grandkids to the bus stop for a couple of days because their grandma on their father's side had some ear surgery and couldn't be around. So I'm sitting at the bus stop like 15 minutes early, and someone comes out of their house screaming and hollering about in their yard, this or that, and I can't hear it. I got three grandkids in the car, and he was actually yelling at me. So he flies out of this driveway at kitty corner from where I'm parked, speeds up to me, jumps out, get out of my yard, get out of my yard, get out of my yard. And I'm laughing so hard, I'm trying to go live. The Streamlabs won't let me, so I just static record him telling me to get off his property. And I'm telling him, look, the federal government ain't even going to kick me out of here. I'm on the street. There's an easement. And then I'm trying to move because the grandkids were so upset and took just basically across the road. And I'm trying to get my live to work again. And I'm watching the video of this idiot yelling at me. And the cop pops his head into my open window and is watching the video with me. I'm like, whoa, oh, hello. It's like, yeah, let me go talk to that guy. He wouldn't even turn his lights on. And the reason why is because when he came back to talk to me before he spent a little while explaining to the guy, he says, can I get your phone number? And he pulls the pad out, the pen, and I'm like, I'd rather really not make my phone number part of a public record. Oh, no problem. Puts it back in his pocket. He says, we know who you are. He called the plate number is. And I said, yeah, I know you know who I am. So he wouldn't even turn his headlights on. He didn't make it official. He was very super nice, talked to the grandkids. They went and talked to the guy for like 10 minutes. But Streamlabs fucked me over, even though it's let me go live when it didn't count when I'm sitting at the park shitting around. When I tried to need it, it failed me. Joe Cool, if you're talking about Blue Ivy, you might get banned. I'll take away that blue status, boy. Morning, Chris. How you doing? Yeah, I got two recordings up. The second one was like where I asked for his ID and he spelled his name for me and gave his badge number. The audio screwy. I don't know. I hate my IS6 phone. That's all right. When you were live last night, she was over here having a trick or treat. It's not fair of either of us to treat her like this. We should both apologize, by the way. Oh, now you done and broke Joe's heart. Can you imagine seeing a 6'5" guy, just tears running down his cheeks? I told you could keep it on a down low, Blue Ivy. Yeah, Joe, I finally finished that cola I showed you the other day. I opened up the bag and damned if there weren't three more. I'm just like it. He will be all right. He'll get over it. Well, there was some mention this morning in Sewer Dog stream about he's like a dog with a squirrel. Kind of grabs his attention, but doesn't hold on to it very long. Whoa. You guys are too much. I'm still not out of the woods over it either, Joe Cool, because my grandkids tell my kids, and then my kids, why do you keep getting my grandkids involved in police matters? Try to take your kid to the shopping, and the cops get called. Try to take them to the school bus, and the cops get called. You'd think I was I mean, thankfully they don't know what I really do, and they come up with all these false accusations. Hey, Sasquatch. Yeah, this morning Reptar was screaming to get fed. He was eating. By the time the lettuce hit the cage, he was off to. Ivy is an awesome supporter. She does go as far as she possibly can to help, I think. And she gives a really good back rub, Joe Cool. I don't want a wrench. Well, first two things, Sasquatch. You don't get a wrench because you want one. You're blue so that I can see when somebody new comes in who's white. And second, you don't get a choice. You're indoctrinated into the army, and you stand in front of all the bullets before they get to me. This is not a democracy. Very much an autocracy. Well, see, Tex, the thing of it is it's an event that only takes about 10 minutes. So everybody shows up to the bus stop like 5 minutes from when the bus should be there, and the bus is usually within 5 minutes of being late. Or so if you don't come out during those 10 minutes, you never really realize it. But the person I am, the kids were going to have to come in the house for 20 minutes. And then I was going to have to try and get them back to the car without them forgetting backpacks and socks and shoes and shirts and whatever homework they're supposed to bring and the backpacks. So we just get in the car and go early. I meet them outside. They get in the van instead of coming in the house. I have no issues. Drive them to the bus stop, and we wait an extra 20 minutes. So I'm the only one that's going to be out of that 10-minute zone. I get there 20 minutes before the bus in the afternoon. I get there 20 minutes before the bus in the morning. But I'm the only one, and I sit there for 15 minutes before anybody else shows up. So I doubt if it's something the guy's experienced, if it's his normal time to go to work. He leaves 15 minutes before the whole event happens. But I do want to point out that I'm glad that it was they came to the bus stop that quickly. But I have an idea that the reason they got there so quickly because they ran my plate. All right, Joe Cool later. Yeah. All right, Ivy. Patch it up. I should flip this video over. It looked like Reptar was flipping him off with his tail. Yeah, that's one of my personal weaknesses. I don't do well on the phone. I never have been a good phone person. First of all, if you listen to my videos, you'll see I don't care about filling in the quiet spaces with nothingness. even though I hate the silence because my ears ring so loud from the blood pressure. Yeah, Chris and Blue, it's if you're in a big channel where you're doing cop watching, I don't think you should mod everybody. This isn't a cop watch channel, so in my vision is more of why I do things. It's why I type in all caps because it's less strainful on my eyes. I mean, I'm sitting here with a big screen TV magnified at 300% so that I can read the chat without it making my eyes tired. Patriots Defense slides into the room. I welcome you. I entertain you by feeding the lizard. And once in a while, I try to throw in a little thought or tell a funny story. Well, I didn't hear of any tragedies on the news this morning, so I guess Halloween must have went well for everyone. I watched part of Pajama Audits Passion's live feed of quite a group of trick or treaters out there where they were. Yeah, Chris, that was quite well clouded over. He had to go make a call. I got to make a couple of calls too. It's not like I procrastinate, but I've got 2 or 3 phone calls I haven't made in 10 years. So I guess maybe I do procrastinate a little. Canceled. I heard that people tried to cancel theirs because of rain. We had snow and mixed with rain starting at about 3 o'clock that lasted until about 11 o'clock last night. It's Michigan. Nobody even shook their head. They just threw on their wet gear and off they went. Most people in most states have a coat hanger. We have coat closets because you have to have weather for the morning, the midday, the afternoon, and the evening. Oh, 40-mile-an-hour winds. Yeah, I heard there was some pretty good winds last night. And I was talking to a few people that it was really chilly down south in parts of Florida even. I think Fort Dirt Farmer was saying it was 43. I'm like, I didn't even turn my heat on until it was colder than 43, and it's only set on 60. Waiting for the best possible time. Well, it's a call to the government, and I have so little patience with them. I cut up my Medicare card because of how they sent it to me. It was crazy. I mean, I've worked two jobs, never took vacations. All of a sudden, I'm disabled. I got nothing to do. And I go somewhere and I get back 3 weeks later because I had no reason to be home. And I get my mail and it says, "Hey, you've been signed up for Medicare," which I thought was a year too early because they say you're supposed to wait 2 years, but they backdated a year. And so I'm looking at it, and it's this particular company that starts with an A and says, "Hey, you don't have to do a thing. We're just going to start taking $112 out of your bank account starting on such and such a day, unless you cut up this card." Okay, cutting up the card. I didn't have to look much more than that. And then when I call the Social Security officer, like, "Well, you cut up your Medicare card." I said, "No, I cut up a card where somebody was trying to rob me without my permission. I haven't had Medicare in 10 years, so that's the call I'm putting off making." Hey, real Jingy. Oh, I can't help but smile every time I read your name. Suspicious activity? It got 22. Woo! Never got to really freeze in here. I think 33 was as low as it got. But see, I have the lake. Lake Michigan keeps us warm here. So it'll be a few degrees warmer than inland. Like if you go 1 mile from the lake, it's like a 10-degree difference at this time of the year and then like spring too. Yeah, Reptar was screaming feed me this morning when I sat down to have my breakfast. He gave me those sad puppy eyes. I thought it was going to be suspicious activity, but the squirrels put on fur early, but they just still haven't put on much more. So I don't know if it's going to be an early mild winter, but from the nature that I've seen, it looks like it's going to be a long fall, just a miserable fall. There is no UP, real Jingy. That's Canadian territory that America occupies. Michigan doesn't claim the UP. We want to give it back to Canada. In fact, there are maps that you can look at that are generic maps that don't even show that as part of America. I may have sent one of those to Ben C. Inlots. It's payback because they call us Lower Peninsula trolls because we live under the Mackinac Bridge. It's not under it, it's below it. And if you believe in the flat earth, it isn't even below it because everything's flat. They think they're American. Oh, they're Americans. They just occupy Canada. I mean, who's going to throw them out? The Mounties? I've been to Canada. I went to Ontario and the capital of downtown. We were throwing water balloons and squirt guns, squirting the bobbies when we were like 18 years old on our class trip. Yeah, like Michigan's got some nice islands on it. There by the bridge, there's the big one, but there's a funnier one on called Beaver Island. And if you look up Beaver Island, you'll see that we took over Beaver Island because there was a guy on there that said he was the king of it. I actually knew his grandson who said they owned Beaver Island and that they were kings. All right, we'll see you, Greg. Most of the UP is just brush scrubland. And if anybody ever tells you it's a great place to be, try being there in the summer when the black flies turn the blue sky black. And it's nice in the spring when it's just warming up and the all the nice little waterfalls are full and they got nice little trails. Or in the late fall after it's cooled off and the leaves are changed color and all the flies are dead. A nice trip through will get you some gorgeous country. But you can see all that in the Lower Peninsula. And I only say that because Ben seeing lots is up in the UP, guys. I really have nothing against the UP. Yeah, they say they have two seasons. Summer lasts about 2 weeks, and the rest of this year it's winter. But I've been up there for weeks on end running bear dogs, training bear dogs, and I mean I fish in some of the thickest country that you the mosquitoes are big enough to haul you away if there's three of them on you. And I never wore a mesh covering my face until I was up there with the black flies. Nothing deters them. You can dip yourself in DEET and they don't care. Why, thank you, Pen, or Sword, whichever one's talking. He's a fat little shit, pretty much full grown, year and 4 months old. My grandkids got him as a very young pet, and they named him Reptar. And Reptar is famous around the world now, thanks to the internet. Yes, Savannah monitors have teeth. All your monitors have teeth. Whereas the bearded dragon or your iguanas, they have palates that crush. They aren't really teeth, they just crush. No suspicious activity. I ended up with half of the Halloween candy the kids brought home from school before they went out trick or treating. So I guess I haven't been a good person. And when I'm really going to be a bad person is when I'm going to dole it back out to them when they want something. Isn't that horrible? Grandpa, you got any candy? Yeah, I just have a couple different pieces. And it don't matter if I'm good anyway, suspicious. The cops get called on me no matter whether I'm good or not. They get called because my grandson's riding on my knee in an electric cart. They get called because I'm parking waiting to send my grandkids up to the school bus. I really wish the videos would turned out. I've even been practicing, but it just goes to show you gotta practice, even if you aren't an auditor. Peppermints, toothbrushes. Oh, when I was a kid, we did UNICEF when you did the trick or treating, and so some people would just open the door with a bowl full of pennies. You're like, or an apple or an orange. Back then, it was like just at the beginning of the razor blade phase, so you still got 5 or 6 apples and a couple of oranges. You're like, they just weight down the bag. I haven't heard of either of those real jingy, and I've subbed to over 1,000 channels. Yeah, and you'd say, well, I'm not collecting for you and stuff. Oh, okay, sorry. Have a nice night. United. I was trying to remember what it was for. It was a foundation, and their whole stick was pretty much only Halloween, and it was pennies. And you got to realize, Pin, I'm really old. So we're talking back in the 60s and 70s. We still carved out stone tablets. Oh, G.A. Gladiator. Boy, all the famous people are showing up. He stole my initials, copyrighted them. Bastard. Well, you can post their channels, Real Jingy, if you got them. Yes, it was Trick or Treat for UNICEF. But I have to admit something. When I was a kid, we called it Treat or Trick because the people who didn't give us good candy was who we visited after we got dropped off at the house, told to go to bed and crawl out our window and go do the rotten egg thing. You don't have to apologize. Shoot, all the time I thought you just were throwing a compliment my way. You know, when you get old, you just take things for granted. Like people think of you. Uh, Real Jingy, just sit down and write down the questions that you think cops ask you. What, where are you from? Where'd you coming from? Where are you going? And you don't have any question they ask, you can throw a question back at them. You don't even have to think of it like a politician. They never answer the question, ever. They're going to say whatever they want to say, no matter what question you ask. And even try this to give yourself, your brain, just a second to get started. Go, well, that's a very good thing that we should talk about, but all of my feathers fell off years ago, gladiator, so I don't get them ruffled very easily. Don't answer anything and tell them to leave you alone. I still like my approach. Every time they ask me if they can help, I ask them. I'm trying to find out if magenta is a pink or a purple. Do you know? And you want to see a person who's completely collected, everything's going to spew out of their mouth without them even thinking, go, what? Yeah, I watched a law professor and a retired detective on a video where they were talking to a group and they were explaining why never to speak to the police. I can go on about my business without mentioning my business. Well, I have a topic that I would like to have a discussion of, but my platform is so small, nobody actually is, not enough people are here to have that discussion. But let me just ask you guys if anyone in here, without looking it up, can tell me what the First Amendment to the Constitution, and here's the trick part, of your state says. Now, here's my thinking. Since I've started watching auditing, my one of the big questions is who's in charge? How can you have different forms of government, levels of government, and they each have different laws? Well, it's been explained to me that the laws are supposed to be in harmony. And the first laws are the federal laws. And the state laws have to also be in harmony. Well, that also means that the local municipalities, cities, whatever governments also can only create laws and policies that are in harmony. You seen that video, Chris? Well, here's my thing, though, and this is where people are going to quit listening to me. It's politics. And before, it's not the government politics, because politics, if you go to the root, is policy. Well, that means that all the policies that are instituted in government buildings, who is in charge of those policies? So, for example, to just throw this quick together, if the person working in the office calls the cops, there's the cops standing there, you're standing there, and a government servant is standing there. Who's in charge? Well, every First Amendment to the Constitution of every state I've read so far gives you that answer. Yeah, the one with the professor and the ex-cop. I've seen that one too. I even posted that to my Facebook. And there's even a Supreme Court decision that, in the opinion, says that you should never speak to cops. But anyways, and nobody's thrown the answer up there. You should check to see what the First Amendment is because it tells who is in charge of policy. And it ain't who you think. It ain't who thinks they think they are. No, actually, some of them are called articles. Some of them are called. There's so far I've seen four different things they're called. Like Michigan says they're it's in Article 1, and then it lists them all, and it's got a different word that it uses. But basically, it's the list of restrictions on the government. It's called the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, but it's not in the states. But that we can really forego the wordage because what they call it is irrelevant. Literally, it's what it gives you or what it restricts the government on. Right. It doesn't come till, see, look at that. It doesn't come till the fourth article in the article. Free speech is not first, neither is free press. And it's not just free speech and free press, by the way. It says you have the right to speak freely, yet you are held accountable for your speech. You have the right to free press, but you are still held accountable for your actions, which is a non-fancy way of saying things like if your speech actually causes public disorder, like it's not illegal to yell fire in a theater if the damn place is on fire. So it's not yelling fire; it's the action that it causes disorder. But anyways, yeah, the first article always says all, and you got to realize when it uses a word like all or every, those words are hard to put into something because there's always another way to look at it. There's always true equals false thing. But this says all the political power resides within the citizens. All of it. So when there's a cop and a servant and you standing there and there's no laws being broken, you're in charge of the policies. You're the political power. Their policy posted on the wall or decided by them holds no weight without law. You are in charge of the policy. It it's something that we've incorporated into the audits a lot of the same jargon. But my problem was as soon as you start quoting the federal constitution, a state cop, a city cop, they stop listening. Well, if we could get our words and verbiage right with the state constitution, maybe they won't shut it down as quick. It's just another avenue, it's another approach, it's another amount of material that's available to us that I think that the whole auditing community kind of isn't using. It's there for us to use. I mean, you'll hear them say exactly the same thing I'm talking about. We're in charge until we break the law. This, right. But if we were to back that up with, well, my state constitution says that I have all the political power here. So don't tell me about policy because I make the policies, not you. It's just something I'm working on. And like I said, I'd like to get into a discussion with it, but I don't have a big enough platform to draw enough people that would spread the word. All political power is inherent in the people, right? And I love the Second Amendment. And I mean, I would use that or second article or second whatever they call it is that if it's in our best interest, we can replace the government with another government. It's not, it is aligned with obviously the right to bear arms because that's the only way to enforce that law. But they word it differently. And I think it's the eighth section of the Michigan state constitution before they even bring up free speech and free press. There you go, real Jiggy. But I don't know what you guys think, but do you think this is worthy of any? Is it just me blowing smoke, or why more, Rob? Well, I'm sure it's not a new thing. I'm not saying I discovered something that nobody knew existed on the dark side of the moon. I'm just saying I've been watching audits for like 16 to 20 hours a day for a year and a half, and I don't see many people using the parchment that is in control of the state they're in. Everybody refers to the, and that, by the way, just blows my mind that people don't know what the First Amendment of the United States is. That just blows my mind when they're like, oh, I don't know. There you go, real Jingy. Everybody check that out. Well, real Jingy, I've had my dozen or so days in front of judges, and I gotta tell you, your hands are tied behind your back, you're blindfolded, and they're holding a machine gun. You have no power in the courtroom. I don't care how many laws you have behind you. I went to visitation and a hearing, and I had 22 cases I cited, and the judge just looked at me, kicked the lawyer out that was in the hearing, sitting in the back because he didn't want him there, and then said, your statement looks like an appeal. Did you have an attorney write this? I'm like, no, I wrote it myself. Where would you get all this information? I said, it's called a law library. I happened to have a wife who was a legal secretary, and we had one car, so I had an hour to kill before she got out of work, and I read the law in the law library at the office. Well, that's one of the things that have bothered me from the beginning, Chris, is whose law is law? If the local government can ignore the federal government, then, and I'm on both sides of the issue because of pot, because the federal government says pot's still illegal. So I have that, I'm a hypocrite, but it actually is explained in, where did I read it, about the harmony? It's supposed to be harmonic. That's why you can civilly sue to have a law that's written taken off the books because it doesn't fall into the harmony of the other levels of the government. Yeah, who one of the famous authors asks them all the time to repeat their oath, and yet I've yet to hear one that could do it. Yeah, I like to explain it like it's restrictions on the government. There are 5 restrictions on the government from impeding in my natural life. And they're going by the wayside, folks. Free speech is about gone because they have something now called compelled speech. And there are places like New York that can bill you $500,000 for you standing on a sidewalk and saying illegal immigrant. It's gone from you're responsible for your own actions to what other people do have to be controlled so I don't get upset. It's not a sustainable society that way. And I've been through 60s, 70s, 80s, and I was through the you can't group people. It's stereotyping them. This is so wrong. You can't put people into groups. And then it was like, fuck you, whatever, for 10 years. Get the fuck out of my lane. Then it was all, we can't, we got to be careful of other people because things that you say somehow cause physical action to the other people. Words are violence. How, and then it just gets generalized and spread out to where pronouns are illegal now. And I don't mean to offend anybody, but it started way back when all of a sudden there were certain words you couldn't say because they were offensive to other people's heritages. And that's where it started. But people don't see the slippery slopes. Yeah, I think it was probably the ninth grade Michigan history class where I wrote down it was the Bill of Restrictions, not the Bill of Rights. But my eye opening didn't come through auditing or seeing bad cops do bad things. My life came about from the government labeling me a danger to society at 15 years old. Because if you don't work for us, you're working against us. And that was when I went from our wonderful government to our wonderful commanders of control. It's exactly right. The laws aren't there to stop us. The laws are there to restrict them from stopping us from doing what we can do. And the laws are there for conflict because that's what it is. That's what the law is for. If there was no conflict, there would be no reason for law. Man is just an animal who was designed to live in poverty. The first explanation I try to talk to people when we're going to have a discussion is if a single person walks into a valley and it's got a water running through it, lush, easy to live, it's got nice cave, and they move in, there are no conflicts. But if another person walked into the other side of the valley at the same time, there's conflict. Why? Because there's more than one person. So we create laws because there's conflict. But somehow, and as the people who wrote down what America should design as a restriction from the government becoming a tyrant, is the result of knowing that power is corrupting and it's going to corrupt. So they tried to limit and slow it down, but they knew it was going to happen. If you read all the Federalist Papers years after, they were still arguing over it because the way things were worded was going to allow down the road. You have to look at down the road because of this decision might be this tiny little right decision You're going to have to make that decision expanded and look at everything. And once you get to the big picture, it's a downhill slope. It's like the easiest thing to understand is the gun restrictions. Once you start restricting, there's no stopping. That was what they perverted. They somehow created this idea that you could hurt the state. And the damage could just be that you broke the law. That how somehow hurts the state. That's the conflict. Well, we created these laws and you're breaking the law, so you hurt us. So now you have to pay. Land of the free, home of the slave. Well, it's more like indentured servants. You're willing to sign over your rights by not fighting for them. I've been fighting for my rights since I was 5 years old and stood up in kindergarten and says I can't read the fucking blackboard, and if you don't move me up to the front, I'm gonna cause trouble. Apparently they never heard a 5-year-old say fuck because it got a whole school board meeting going. But I got to sit in the front of the teacher's test so I could read the blackboard. If you don't fight for what's right for you, you're not going to get it because there's nobody else that cares. And I don't know how many follow the government in the District of Columbia, but the similarities to what we fight with the citizen and the cops and Trump and the deep state are like you can't not see the similarities. Right now they're trying to under bullshit. Well, it's legal for us to do it this way. It's probably made everybody leave too, me rambling. See, I can only get 4 people in, that's why that discussion is. I don't even want to have it because there's a lot more to it, but it's not going to spread around. It's not going to do much good, and eventually I'll get bored with it. But I'll have incorporated it into my life. But I really think it's a tool that the whole group is not using very well. I know you're here, and I appreciate that. And I would probably ramble if you weren't here, but I'm gonna have to really go out and push for my 1,000 subs because I'm getting myself in trouble not being able to go live. Okay, here's my thing about the panels. Most of the panels are just unorganized, uncontrolled, and not topical. They're more of, hey, the community's getting together to shoot the shit. Like after work, you go to the bar and have some beers. That's what most of the panels are. And like I said, I could set up a panel in my room, but there wouldn't be enough people that would come in that would. But I'm working on it. It's still in progress, mulling around in this old brain of mine that I want to bring it up. And at the right time, I'll try and find a way to bring it up. But I keep jumping on the other side and arguing with one of the voices in my head. And then I got the other voice in my head that just banging a drum. And then I got another one that's talking about sex. And you got all these voices in your head. You just got to make sure they don't escape. So I'll go in a panel room and I'll chit chat if they're talking about something that's happened or this or that, and I'll stay. But if it's just socializing, I have so many channels I need to go watch other stuff where people are live, or especially the auditors that have under 100 subs and are going live, and that that have nobody to watch them, and you're the only 1 or 2 people there. I know, and I'm dragging my feet on it, real G, but I'm still running a lot of complex language in my head that I have to run it in subconscious. I can't run it conscious because it's just too complicated. And the speed is so slow to do it consciously. And I'm not saying that they should be any different. The panel should be, and don't misinterpret what I'm saying. Is I've seen panels that had a topic and that, that topic was discussed. But this one's like a four-part panel or four-part discussion center that you need to break it all down. And when you just do it halfway, sometimes it's worse than if you didn't start at all. Yeah, the whole delay thing in the panel, when there's like a 10-second delay, it's hard not to talk over each other. And it's hard not to lose your train of thought because while you're talking, all of a sudden another voice comes in, and sometimes even yours. You need the more everybody on the same time without the delays. Wow, I never heard it put that way, real G, but that makes sense. And that's fine too. I don't mind them having panels where they get together and shoot the shit. That's great. I mean, I enjoy Sewer Dog coming on in the morning, and then usually I feed the lizard afterwards. And then, it's not a real serious discussion, but if there's something of the day, but this is more of a you have to be willing to join a class and sit there and focus your attention and try and mull this over in your own mind. And most people have a lot of shit going on in their life, and this isn't. But I will bring it up, and I will join a panel or start a panel that and discuss it because I think it's very worthy of the discussion. And like I said, I think it's important for us to understand how to explain to the officer that policies cannot be enforced because they're not in harmony with law. Instead of telling them they lose their qualified immunity, get them to understand that enforcing policy is illegal and that you're in charge of the policies. So, I appreciate you saying that, Jay. That's the thing with most of my videos. I'm like poor dirt farmer. The soil is thin, but I keep planting seeds. Even though my live streams last 30 minutes to a couple hours, somewhere in there I try to give an opinion of how I see things. Yeah, real Jingy, I've struggled with whether or not I can condone the fact that I felt like I was raised in a very controlled environment where the air was so thick you could cut it with a knife and you didn't dare say anything. And even to this day, when I hear people yelling at somebody else, I cringe. It was so, I mean, it affected me so bad. Even as a very young person, and I'm talking 2 and 3 years old, I had reoccurring nightmares because my dad's voice was deep and he was authoritative, and it scared the hell out of me. I don't know what the OD is, a misspelling, or if you meant odd or good or what you meant, but and emotional abuse is a tough one because you don't, you try to blame yourself for it. What did I do wrong? Why didn't I do it different? Chris, I lost a bunch of people coming into my room because I talked math. You better be careful. Oh, yeah. We were the dumbest kids a father ever raised. I got to tell you, I heard that so many times. And it wasn't that he didn't love us, and it wasn't that he didn't care deeply for us. It was just that was how he communicated, and it wasn't very fun. And when you decide that you're not going to have your grandchildren and your children put in that position, it destroys the family because they don't get to be part of the family. So I sacrificed my grandkids knowing and kids knowing my parents and my family because I didn't want to put them through the emotional abuse that happens there. Will they turn out better for it? Who knows? Okay. Yesterday, I was the second day in a row I had to run my kids to the bus stop in the park. There's several bus stops. There's like 5 or 6 different buses that come through the park. And normally the kids are at their grandma's house, but she's having ear surgery. So they needed me to run the kids to the bus stop in the morning and run to the bus stop, pick them up in the afternoon. Well, because the timing, all they would be in my house would be 20 minutes, and it's 3 grandkids, and they all have boots that they take off, and coats, hats. They throw their book bag down. So in and out would be like waste of time. So I just go to the bus stop early. Well, bus stops are designed where everybody knows what time the kids are there, so they're maybe 5 minutes early, not 25 minutes early. So I show up 25 minutes early. I park on the shoulder of the road and I'm not even in that guy's yard. My right side tires are still on pavement. And we're set there for 3 or 4 minutes, and somebody comes out of a house, and I got my window part way down, and I hear parking in my yard, in my yard, and I heard him screaming in my yard again. And I looked at the grandkids, and I said, I don't know, something's upsetting him about his yard. And they're like, yeah, but they didn't know either. And he comes walking over and or drives over and gets out of his car and starts yelling to get off his property. Get off my property, get off my property, get off my property. You're going to cause an accident. It's dangerous to park out here. This is private property. And I'm trying to get my live stream going. It won't work. So I go static, and I got a little bit of the end of his conversation. When he calls the cops, he reads off my plate number, and my grandkids are getting a little upset. So I put the phone down, stop recording, move the van to the other side of the street, and I start trying to work with my phone. And I started watching the video that I just recorded, and I got the window all the way down. And the cop pokes his head right into the window. I didn't even see him pull up. He didn't have no headlights on or no flashing lights or nothing. Pokes his head in the window and is like, wow. Like, oh, hello. You're like, hi. I got a call for out here. And I said, yeah, I guess you did, huh? And so I didn't record the quick conversation we had with him where he heard me say to the guy that, there's an easement. Even if I wanted to, I could park on your property. And then he goes and talks to the guy for like 15 minutes, and the guy speeds off. The cop was real nice with the kids, asked him what they were going to do for Halloween, pulls out the big tablet, gets his pen out, says, "Can I get your phone number?" I'm like, "I'd really not like to make my phone number a part of public records." "Fine, that's not a problem." Puts his paper away, didn't push anything. And at the end, I was video recording him talking to the guy, but the sound don't work at all. And he walked back to his car at the end of the stop, and I said, "Excuse me." I yelled out the window, "Could I get your name and badge number?" And he yelled his name, spelled it, and gave me his badge number. So all in all, the cop did great, but the homeowner was a nut. And so last night I went back and I tried to do another live there, criminal returning to the scene of the crime or something. And I got rid of Streamlabs, reloaded it, tried to use it again this morning, and it still isn't working right. Sound isn't getting through. I don't know. So the kids wouldn't let me park there, though. They made me park across the street again. So I got a cop watch. I did a horrible job, and I've been practicing with my phone to go live. That's why I go to the park and turn on the Streamlabs and, to get used to it. But I really need to get 1,000 subs so I can just go live through YouTube, I guess. Because for some reason, people keep calling the cops on me. Well, real genie, I found out things that later that, you know, I always was very angry because my father was a racist. And when I got a little older and found out that he was actually sold, literally got money, his mom got money for him to move to Detroit so that the rich shirt tail cousins wouldn't have to send their own kids to busing to the inner city because all they had to do was offer one child, and that child wasn't their own. So they had somebody brought in so they could ship them to the inner city. So he was torn from the hills of Tennessee, put in Detroit suburb, and bused to the inner city, where he was police officers rode the bus, police officers at the door, police officers in the bathroom, police officers in. All he saw was violence and hatred. So is it wrong that he grew up trying to avoid that kind of area where he didn't want to be anywhere near a big city? And all I saw was as him hating black people. It, you know, we sometimes need to stop and look at the origins and cut people a little slack. If you came from Auschwitz and you hated the Germans, would anybody fault you for it? And I think that the big thing is that the word racist today is so screwed up that you can't use it. But the fact that we don't talk about discrimination, which is what the real issue should be discussed, and that's the only way you're going to get equality. You're not going to get equality by yelling racism. You're going to get equality by not looking at color and looking at the situation as far as just someone being discriminated against. But that's just my opinion, and it's not worth a whole lot. Oh, this guy was sure I was gone. He was, "How dare you park on my property on this paved road?" Oh, the other thing about it was he drove through his yard to yell at me. So he drove his car on his grass to yell at me. Yeah, see, that's my problem is I have a physical reaction. I can't flee. I have no flight response because I can't walk. I can use a walker and get around, but the only thing I have is defense. And when you only have defense, it's not a good thing to wait till you have to defend yourself. In other words, if he grabs my camera, I'm liable to break his arm before he gets to my camera out of reflex. They teach the police that if you're in a dangerous situation, until you're ready for action, do not get closer than 6 to 9 feet. Remain at a perimeter of 6 to 9 feet. So that's what I want other people to remain away from me so that I'm safe because I can't flee. I don't have a choice. No, equality of the outcome is an insanity. There's no mathematical formula where I can create equality to outcome. I can't make that work. I can write a mathematical formula to tell you whether or not they're aliens, the odds are, whether or not they even existed at the time that we live. I can write a mathematical formula for how to figure out how many diagonals are any side number of sided object, but I can't come up with a mathematical formula for how to get quality of outcome out of equality. It doesn't work that way. Equality of outcome may be a value you can place on what's happened, but it can't be something you can strive to have. It's the quantum language and all the things that the American language has so much going for it, but it has so much not going for it. And the, Mr. Dangley, hey, my boy, how's it going? You never checked in anymore. I was supposed to look through your Halloween candy last night. Where were you? Um, it's. I don't think we have enough information on the Plummer versus State. You can kind of make a determination, but there's a couple things in there that preclude it. It's all gone. Oh my God! I remember when my kid busted me because that was back when they first started putting razor blades in apples, and you had to check all the candy. And I'd take the closed wrapper candy and like untwist it by pulling on it back then. Oh, this one's open. Can't have this one. But you opened it. Well, I might have put something in there. Yeah, I even let the truth slip out on Pajama Audit Passions last night. But it's all a conspiracy of the adults. They run the kids around all night to get them exhausted collecting candy. Take them home, they crash, and then they get the candy. She made me retract the statement so the kids didn't read it. Oh. Yeah, you don't have to tell them. I'm not going to read that comment, Jerry. And then she exposed my other channel on there. And that's Jerry, everybody. He's using his mock account. They were going to time me out. It's funny. There's some channels that you really can't get away with saying anything. And all I said was I put up a couple emojis, my sunglasses, my wave, and a little detective emoji. And I said something along the lines of spying, huh? So you're pretending to be a great mom so you can film the police covertly. And I had like 2 or 3 people that were going to time me out. I hear you, real Jiggy. That's one of the other situations that I've been dealing with this American Disabilities Act. It's one that's pretty powerful. I had a friend in the woodworking industry whose brother was a paraplegic, and he was a reporter who spent a lot of time over in Israel when it was scary as shit to be over there. And yeah, he'd come back and he would have like the movie theater kick him out because he was in a wheelchair. But like I said, he was a reporter, so they would end up sued. But reasonable accommodation is like anything else. Once they label it and put the words there, then it can be changed. Once you define something, you restrict it into a set of mathematical situations, which is a set. It's the problem with language. People think it can mean anything they want it to mean. It used to be there was a dictionary that defined what words meant. Now words mean whatever you feel like at the time, and they can change without notice. I agree. Well, see, here's the other thing, real Jingy. The state constitutions have a section written in them that says no group or individual has rights beyond any other. I really think the state constitution destroys a qualified immunity right from the start. And I really think a good attorney could prove that. I don't think qualified immunity is constitutional according to the state constitution, because that gives them rights that are higher than our rights. That removes restrictions of responsibility. That's the dumbest thing to remove. If you take somebody's responsibility for their actions away, how do you get any mores, or how do you have any control over their actions if they don't have any responsibility for them? If there's no accountability, which is what we always fight for, but I don't like using that word because it follows, like James Freeman explains every time, it follows down to the end where violence is the answer. And whenever you have that, where violence is the answer, that's where the moral problem starts. Yeah, when I really got down to where I couldn't get around much, I like to use the word handy capable, but there was one channel that I watched quite a few of his videos where he would just go around to the city streets where you couldn't bring a wheelchair in. And the funny part was the one that was the worst was the woman who sold wheelchairs, who didn't have wheelchair access to her store. So as far as Disabilities Act, most of the people who aren't disabled just look at it like we're trying to get something that we don't deserve, and it really is just a reasonable accommodation. We have handicap parking spots because it's reasonable to get you closer to the store. But when you, like I say, when you define it and restrict it into a set of language, it loses most of its meaning. I haven't seen any videos from Mr. Dangley in a while. Well, I mean, once you start getting into touchy subjects like transgender and stuff, you can isolate yourself and get a lot of people upset about it. But I personally think it's just disfigurement. It's no different than wearing jewelry that's attached to your body, or having a tattoo, or having burnings, or things shoved under your skin. It's just a matter of adjusting your personal appearance, your physicality. I don't think it changes anything else. And I'm not saying that they don't have a right to do it, but I'm just saying that's how I feel about it. Oh, you're not talking about transgender. Okay, that's what you're not talking about. I get it. Sorry. I thought they wanted to be called transabled. Oh, okay. I don't think it should be frowned on either, real Jiggy. That's where I put it in the category of. I don't think it changes who you were born or what you are, but it just changes. It's a reflection of how you feel about yourself. So why would you want to make that illegal? I don't think you should force other people to pay for it for you any more than I think you should be able to get a tax deduction for getting a tattoo. I don't know. I'd almost have to qualify myself as a person that chose disability, because I knew all along when I took on 20 hours a week or a day jobs and didn't sleep for 25 years that my body was going to be destroyed. There was no way around it. I wasn't getting sleep to heal. I was just abusing my body physically every day. And, and the result was I wore my joints out. I got what they call workers' arthritis. I have three surgeons that would love to tear into me. That I mean, I'm an easygoing person. If you were a person who I misgendered because you feel that you this is your gender and I got it wrong, I would just say I'm sorry, and accept that. However, if you tell me I have to do something, you can not only restrict my speech, but you can force me to speak a certain way. Then I have an issue. It's not with the transgender; it's with what you're forcing me to do. I mean, I have both of my forearms on the top side are full of 1,000 burn scars because I cooked. They weren't like I paid somebody to burn me, but it's affected how the outside of my body looks. Compelled speech is the worst thing I could possibly think of to destroy what America believes a person should be protected to do. Not sure because most of the tattoos I'm talking about are on my daughter. And I have some unique perspectives on life. Like I was raised in a completely Christian Bible Belt areas. And at 18, almost 19, I went down to downtown Houston and stayed for 8 months. And I was the minority in every category. I became the only straight guy in the room. And you get a feeling of what it felt like to be the only gay person in the room because that's the way things are. You're different. Everybody quantifies differences. It's something that was built into your genetics. That's why we have an answer before we know what the question is in our brain because survival depends on it. But it's our civilized society that trains us to overcome that feeling. I mean, whenever I get into discussions, yeah, I just say, hey, I'm a 25-year-old Jamaican chick with double D's and a great ass. That's how I want to identify. Why? Because I'm home alone all the time. At least that way these nice boobs get played with. As far as that, I think Ben Shapiro had the best comeback in a discussion with a question that was during one of his seminars where the girl was claiming to be something else. And he asked the question, well, why don't you identify as an 85-year-old? And she says, because I'm not. It's like, oh, okay, that kind of answers the whole question there. I mean, you could identify as a duck, but does that mean during duck season I'm going to shoot you and dress you up and throw you in the oven? No. Oh, I saw it. I rewatched it because I was so high the first time. I love the way he tells a joke, turns around and walks to the back of the stage, and he's got these shoes that are like angelic white. They stand out with every step he takes, reflected on the floor. Oh man! Now see, If I did any rock climbing, it was in my Jeep. Oh yeah, the car thing. And it's actually pretty reflective of reality because it's a loose knit group of people that don't agree on anything, but they get lumped into this 0.01% of the population altogether, and they really aren't all together. I mean, I was in downtown Houston, like I say, in '81, and I went. I hung out. My brother-in-law was had a boyfriend living with him, and all the friends that he hung out with were gay men. And I worked at a studio that was run by a gay guy, but all the people that worked there, except for me, were lesbians, and I mean bull dykes. These chicks were stronger, bigger than me, most of them, and I was the one little white guy. But I will admit that other than Friday nights when we cashed our check in the lesbian bar, I really never had to watch myself. But that was the one place where when I went in, I had to not say anything. I had to not hit on any girls. I had to just hang out with the three girls I was with, and they would cash their checks and pay the money they'd borrowed from me during the week because they were all ice smokers. So they burn their whole paychecks up on the weekend, and I feed them all week during lunch, and they'd have to pay me back Friday, or I wouldn't feed them the next week. But almost everybody treated me like there was nothing wrong with me. So that was what was different. I was always intimidated by girls because I learned at a very young age that the difference between men and women is that any female can walk into a room full of men and say, I want to have sex, and she's going to have sex. And any man can walk into a room full of women and say, I want to have sex, and go right to jail because they're going to destroy him. So I knew we were on the lower end of the scale as men to begin with. But that's how you think about things when you start having sex at 8 years old. And that was the most traumatic event in my life was at 13 finding out that that's how babies were made. Talk about trauma. It took me weeks to get over that. And I stopped having sex too, by the way. Well, I'm going to have to privatize this one, aren't I? You know, I don't answer questions, glad auditor. And then when I did started having sex again, it was only with married women because I was afraid of that situation. Yeah, women in depression, mood swings. You really, if you understand the physics of the how the body works, you can't hardly hold them accountable for it. I mean, us guys would go insane. Look at it this way: men have an XY chromosome, so they have two battles in their head. Women have two Y chromosomes, and it's two women fighting in their head. So, it's, you got to cut women some slack. Their emotional concept goes up and down because their chemistry goes up and down. I mean, you've heard the joke: a woman bleeds for 7 days and doesn't die. How can that be? But the reality of it is that their chemistry affects the way the brain works, because that's what it is. It's a big ball of electrical juice full of chemicals. Yeah, you don't want to put it that way in front of women, though, Gladio. Men may be physically powerful, but women have all the power. That's why I think this country went wrong with the 19th Amendment. Oh, wait a minute, I can't say that. I think one of the best things I'd heard was the one person that was advocating for contraceptives for transgender men who turned into women. I mean, that's like the South Park teachers saying he was going to have his period. Now, there are some legal cases that are going to be coming about in the next couple of years that are going to decide all this transgender on children. I've already been through it because my brother, his son, my nephew, moved in with a chick whose all three of her children were born the wrong gender. And I can't tell you the mathematical odds of that because the number's too high for three kids in one family to be born the wrong gender. But this woman is just absolutely a nut. Well, just think about 100 years from now when that's just an everyday occurrence. Oh, your baby's going to be a girl. You're 13 weeks along. No, we want a boy. Okay, we'll take care of that. We'll do uterine surgery and change him into a boy before he's born. That's the thing, is the day and age changes about every decade. And if you can remember the past decades, like me, I'm a science and math buff, so I remember distinctly in the 80s when the whole planet was going to freeze over and we were all going to die from global cooling. So when I first heard of global warming, I'm like almost pissed myself. It's like, wait a minute, we were going to freeze to death. Now we're going to roast? And it's all bullshit. It's all lies. They don't use any real science. I mean, you can look at a graph of carbon over the past 500 years, and it don't match anything to do with the climate. Carbon has nothing to do with climate. Yeah, I picked up on when his social books started coming out, and the one person wrote the book, and I think they mistitled it because it should be women are from Mars and men have a penis, not men are from Mars and women are from Venus. It really should have been written properly, which is women are from Mars and men have a penis. All right, I got to make a physical motion here, and I don't want anybody to hear me screaming or hollering. So I'm all done ranting and raving, I guess. I appreciate you guys hanging with me, and the topics we discussed are important. I really think they are. And anybody who watches the videos who wants to comment and disagree, or what else? What else? I can't give it all to you in one day. The human brain can only absorb three things in a permanent situation per day. That's about all it can handle. Thank you for giving me the OG status. All right, Reptar. Thank you, Real Jingy. I appreciate you being in here more than you know. And GA Gladiator idea. I try to watch and comment on everybody's, and I don't always get there, but I do let a few of my opinions slip in my room. Y'all have a great day. You were born with it, I took it. I own my name, damn it. Google me. I'm the only one in the universe. Have a good one. Raptor and I like to say, we gone.